There we go. And we are live. Good to be back here on another live stream. Good to see you guys. We've had a bunch of precipitation, snow and rain in the area, and so that means my sub pump is working a lot, pumping water out of our basement. So you might hear that a little bit. I have to record a video after this live stream tonight, and whenever I do that, I always need to like stop and yeah, so hopefully that doesn't interfere. So um with this stream, there it goes again. So usually for recording a video, I stop during those moments, but right now we'll just keep on streaming. So hopefully it's not too disruptive with my mic over here a little further away from the sump pump. But nice to see you, Brandon. Nice to see you, William. Eggers Home Tech. A lot of the regulars here. And we have a bunch to talk about. I had a great discussion on Shane Watley's channel yesterday with Shane and George. That was a lot of fun. But one of the things we didn't get to yesterday, and there's been some more developments in the news today around it, is Apple Intelligence. Of course, the big news today coming from Mark Gurman is that John Giannandrea, who was the longtime head of Siri and artificial intelligence at Apple, is now out of that job. He's still at the company, but not overseeing the voice assistant. Apparently still focusing on the robotics project, which might tie into the smart home in the future. But Mike Rockwell, who joined the company in 2015 and led the Vision Pro development, both hardware and software, is now taking over. Of course, you can't ship Vision Pro without a lot of machine learning and image identification and all kinds of other things. Apparently, Mike has been very vocal about Siri inside of the company. So we'll see what comes of it. Obviously, the changes at that kind of executive level probably won't really take an impact too soon. But one of the things I've been thinking about with Siri, of course, the going conversation on social media right now is that you ask it what month it is, and it doesn't know, which is kind of funny. But there is actually something kind of related to this, which is for a lot of breaking news stories. And let's say there's something terrible happening in some city or state or part of the world. And it's not to diminish the fact that that thing, whatever it is terrible. Probably it's why it's unfortunately a news story. But then the news, because they're just focused on that one area where the problem is, it makes it appear as if the entire city or the entire country or whatever is all like that. It's all just completely decimated. And then you'll talk to people who live nearby and they'll say, yes, that's a problem over here. But thankfully for us, it's been more or less life as normal because we don't live near that particular area, and it doesn't mean that there aren't people really affected by whatever the disaster is. And I don't want to pin this on any particular thing, but I think sometimes Apple's voice assistant gets some of that same kind of bad press where it looks like it couldn't answer a single request from anybody. But in reality, I use it all the time to control my smart home. And I find for a lot of basic smart home commands, it's more reliable than it's ever been. I'm finding really fast performance with my HomePods and with my phone, and being able to ask it things like close all the upstairs shades, right? And it's multiple bedrooms, different vendors of shades, and they all close at the same time. Things like turn off the basement light or turn off the lower level lights, which is my office and the basement and other places. Commands like that just work. And so, as much as I'm not saying there aren't problems that need to be fixed with Apple's intelligence and Siri and things like that, artificial intelligence, I think it's easy to also misconstrue these issues with Apple Intelligence and say that, well, then that means that everything related to Siri is bad. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. And so I think a lot of you guys know that, but just wanted to bring it up here, and we'll get into more examples of that in a minute. But I want to say hi to some more folks in the chat. Hey, Samir. Can't hear it. Can you guys hear my audio? Hopefully my audio is coming through. Yeah, potentially scary times. I mean, they have enough money to survive for eons. I mean, Microsoft made a lot of missteps back in the day and has still reemerged to be a strong company. So it's a good point, Robert. We'll see. It's definitely a transition, things changing, I think. And I think Mike Rockwell taking a position, I think, is good because he joined the company in 2015. So he's not part of this old guard of leadership that's been there since the Steve Jobs days. And I think for the particular position of Siri, I think you need someone who kind of has a fresh take on things, and has more of a new approach, but also still has been at Apple long enough to know what's going on and how to get things done. Good evening, George. Great to see you again after talking yesterday. So yeah, it was really fun streaming with George and Shane over on Shane's channel. You can go check that out on Shane Watley's channel. So hopefully my audio is coming through. Okay, cool. Oh, can't hear it. Good. The sub pump. Got it. Yeah, okay, yes. Yeah, there's sometimes a delay between what I say, then of course, and then it going out on YouTube and then me seeing chat messages. And so sometimes the context of a comment then doesn't always line up. So I'm glad you cannot hear my sub pump because it is running right now and continually. So at least it's not distracting. So that's good. Good. I'm sorry you don't have the rain, John. Yeah, hopefully soon. We definitely had plenty of it, rain and snow. It's one of those spring mornings in Illinois where you wake up and there's snow on the ground and everything's snowy, and then you come home in the evening and it's like remnants of snow, but pretty much everything's clear. So it warmed up and melted. All right. So yeah, it's. Let me pull this up. Get this on screen here. Show you guys what I'm talking about. See if this works. Oh, there we go. All right. So, if I do, I should probably really quick change my wallpaper here just so I don't show my family's faces on TV on live stream. I should have thought about that before this. My bad. Okay, here we go. Done. So, if I go here and I ask it the question of like, what month is it, right? What month is it? I don't understand, which is not great. But then one of the things that we've been using the voice assistant from Apple for a long time to do, which is related, but kind of smart and also handy. My son is really into, one of my sons is really into the trash truck and the trash day being on a particular day of the week. And with that, he's always wanted to know, like, oh, so and so's birthday or such and such holiday, what day of the week is that going to be? And you can ask for random dates in the future and what day of the week it is. And of course, it'll just do the date math and spit it back out at you. So, we can just say, like, what day of the week is August 18th, 2026?
It's Tuesday, August 18th, 2026.
So, it's like, yes, it doesn't know the current month, but it can do all this other fancy date math, stuff like that. I just find that all kind of interesting. But clearly that team has a lot of work to do. But I think it's easy to think that they've been doing nothing over the past, whatever, 10 years, 15 years. And we have a lot to be thankful for with what Apple's already done with their voice assistants. James, nice to see you from Vegas. Glad you could join us. And Yes, I should make a focus mode for my live streams, Edgar's Home Tech. I actually have a focus mode for specifically for recording, which would have worked in that case, but I wasn't thinking of it because it's a live stream. So like here's my here's my recording focus mode, of course, like black wallpaper, got my black magic cam, quickly shut off my thermostat and trigger any of my office scenes. So that is possible for me to do. But yeah, I just wasn't thinking about that because to me, live streams are different than recording. But yeah, they are in a way one and the same. Ratchet Gang, nice to see you here. Thanks for joining. So, if you're just joining us, we talked a little bit about Apple Intelligence. Of course, the big story coming out today from Mark Gurman is that Apple's top executive for Siri is out, John Giannandrea. I mean, he's not out of the company, but not out of that particular role at Apple. And um, Mike Rockwell from the Vision Pro program is taking over. And um, I think we talked a lot about that, so I don't want to kind of repeat too much, but um, I'm very optimistic. I don't think that'll change anything overnight or even in probably the next month or two, but I think it'll be good to have some fresh perspective there. Um, there's definitely a lot of things Apple needs to do to improve that part of the company, but it's easy to forget that, all the great things that Apple does on every day, right? Like shipping iPhones. And speaking of another Apple product, which it's upstairs, so I can't bring it down for the live stream here. But speaking of new Apple products, I've actually traded in my iPad Pro to try out the MacBook Air. So I've been playing with the new M4 MacBook Air, and it's really, I miss the cellular on the iPad, but I really like having a Mac with the size and weight of a MacBook Air and the single core performance of M4, because the M4 chip is a nice step above the M1, 2, and 3. So it kind of makes up for some of the lack of extra cores and performance that you would traditionally get with a MacBook Air. And I find it to be a really performant machine for stuff of clearly like it's not going to replace my MacBook Pro. It's not going to be, the a better machine for exporting video or doing lots of software. Uh, but I do find it very handy for being able to take around places and get some of that work done outside the home. And then, of course, I come back to my studio here where I generally keep my MacBook Pro, but I also like having, sort of this desktop laptop MacBook Pro. So then when I go to things like CES or maybe other conferences or whatever, and I want to edit a bunch of video in the hotel room, I can, and it's not gonna slow down. I think one of the things you might see with in my experience, having tried MacBook Air before and then using it now, a lot of the benchmarks out there on YouTube tend to not account for the repeated use of high performance tasks. I think the MacBook Air is pretty competitive when it's just running. It's been cool running, and then all of a sudden has one hard task, and then it goes back to not a lot of stress. Where you really miss things like the fan, active cooling, other stuff is with more sustained workloads. So you're continually exporting video or compiling software or doing something like that. That's where the lack of active cooling really starts to take an effect on a MacBook Air. But otherwise, I mean, it's just an incredible little machine. And if you're interested in it, I mean, can't recommend it enough, except for the fact that it doesn't have cellular. But I think a lot of people have talked about that. Should come to the Mac one day, but it's not here yet. So I didn't get a particularly fancy machine. I just really got more or less the base stuff. 512, or I got a terabyte SSD. That was really a big upgrade. And otherwise, 16 gigs of RAM and just an M4, and it's fine as a sort of a portable laptop, I guess you could say. So, yeah, plenty of things Apple still does very well. And hey, Mike, nice to see you here. Thanks for joining. Yeah, and back to John also saying here, new blood, new new perspective coming into the Siri team. I think it'll be a good addition. If you haven't checked out um, Daring Fireball, John Gruber's website, he had a really good sort of critique of Apple on, speaking of Apple Intelligence. The Something is Rotten in Cupertino came out now. Was it not this past Friday, but not tomorrow, but the Friday before that? And I think the biggest thing to be that I think John is upset with Apple, and I can relate to this, is the idea that Apple promised all this stuff with Apple Intelligence back at WWDC in June of 2024, and they weren't able to deliver that within a year. And there's a lot of open questions of whether a lot of this stuff of sort of a contextually aware AI agent is something that's even possible. We talked about last week on the stream Amazon's Echo, and Amazon's whole system of smart home devices getting Alexa Plus, and Amazon still doesn't ship that, so we'll see what happens there. Uh, I think it's a really hard problem to solve on a lot of different levels. There's the security angle. There's understanding complex instructions and being able to send that off to the right parts of your AI systems. And I think also there's the side of it with Apple that maybe some of these app intents where they're expecting to get data back, a lot of app intents aren't necessarily instant. If you use app intents and shortcuts, you'll see it kind of move through your different parts of the shortcut and it's fast, but in relation to all the other things that would have to be going on from a request to your Apple Assistant, it's probably going to feel slow in part because of that. And of course, AI stuff takes long enough as it is. So then to add speed decrease from running through all these app intents in your apps, I think there's a lot of challenges Apple and other companies face there. So it was, I think, kind of surprising in retrospect that Apple claimed that they had this already, or coming soon, and I think they lost a lot of credibility. And I think that's a bigger problem to me than, of course, you can be behind in something and desperately trying to catch up. But I think the fact that they misestimated if they could ship this or not shows just how far behind they might be because they didn't, at least back then, have the understanding of how hard the problem would actually be to solve. So, we'll see. But there's been a lot of great coverage. The other thing too that I love that John Gruber wrote recently over on Daring Fireball. I don't have these specific articles pulled up, but I'll just pull up his website here. But oh no, okay, hold on, technical difficulties. Maybe not pulling up his website right now, but the other thing that he was talking about is just that how singular Mark Gurman is with reporting on particular details inside of Apple. He seems to be like the main source of all these rumors and inside happenings at Apple, and everybody else just kind of reposts or reblogs what he says. And it's a bummer that there aren't more sources inside the company. I know it's hard to get those rumors, and it's in some ways kind of, I mean, I wouldn't love the idea if I was reporting on rumors of like trying to get someone inside the company to really violate their own contracts and share information they shouldn't. That's a whole other side of the rumors, but it is interesting how it's really become just like Mark Gurman and no one else is in the game. Um, I'm not sure. I don't love that. I think it's means that there's, I think, a chance for misunderstanding or misinterpretation more than if we have multiple sources. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that changes over time. I know the Wayne Mott, the information has had some good sources over time, although and then of course there's Ming Chi Kuo who has sources in the supply chain. So there are some, but there used to be a lot of like Guy Rambo and some others who would reverse compile some earlier betas from Apple, and that would lead to more leaks than it has. So, yeah, just the sources are kind of slim, as understandably, Apple probably cracks down on it from their side as well. Oh, thank you, Edgar. Yeah, it was really fun. If you're just joining and you haven't seen Shane and George Langenbeer and I, Shane Watley and George Langenbeer and I did a group stream yesterday afternoon, uh, US time. So that's over on Shane's channel. And I'll put a link in the description after this. You can go check that out if you haven't already. But it was a fun discussion. Talked about a bunch of new smart home products that have been coming out, and just about our smart homes and how we got started. And it was a fun time. And of course, if you're a regular viewer over here, you're no stranger to George. He's was a guest on live stream here a few weeks back now, and probably if you watch this channel, you probably also watch George's channel and Shane's channel. It's a whole cinematic universe of Apple home creators, and of course, we got more in the chat with Brandon Doyle and Edgar's Home Tech, and there are more who come in from time to time. I love it's kind of a growing community of us creators on YouTube. You'll see these like sort of subcultures of different groups of channels, that form on YouTube. And of course, smart home tech is becoming more and more one of those. So it's always great to see. Oh, thank you, Ratchet Gang. Yes, it was a lot of fun to put the googly eyes on there. So I had seen some googly eyes from some other stuff going on actually at our church, and I then saw the sort of like the X logo on, or it's like a triangle sort of logo on that X series of vacuums from Ecovacs, and I just realized, oh, I need to put googly eyes on this because it could be a nice little like nose mustache kind of look there. So it was fun, and it does make those things more personal. I'm surprised that robot vacuum companies don't sell accessories of some kind to make their robots look more personable, give them eyes or whatever. That could be a whole thing. Companies could probably 3D print a bunch of that stuff on Etsy, and maybe they already do, and I just didn't look hard enough. But I think it's kind of a fun idea to within, like give this robot in your home kind of more of a personal touch to it beyond just the voice commands that you can do with a lot of these modern robot vacuums. Oh, thanks, Glee. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Um, yeah. Oh, yeah. I did not see the NVIDIA robot in person, Ragged Gang. I saw some news about some of that stuff. I think coming from was it part of NVIDIA's CES keynote? I think, but no, I haven't really followed that too closely. Um, I know there's a number of companies these days kind of pursuing that whole humanoid robot perspective. And of course, back to our previous conversation, John Gianandrea is still apparently leading that group at Apple, more of a early research and development group, apparently, according to Mark Gurman, another singular source there we talked about. So, um, yeah. So let's see. I had some other stuff. I'm sorry, I don't have screen sharing working tonight because I reinstalled Ecamm or reset Ecamm. It doesn't have my permissions for screen recording on my Mac, and I'd have to leave the stream and come back to re-enable it. So we're stuck without screen sharing. I can show some stuff on my phone though. So going to my live stream topics. Nanoleaf has some new PC lights. Now, these are something that I saw at CES. I think these are exactly what they showed at CES, but it was fun because sometimes you get to see some stuff sort of on the early side of development at CES, and they want to hear your feedback, of course. I'm pulling it up on my phone so you guys can see what I'm talking about, but some new sort of backlighting for a PC integrates directly with a lot of Nanoleaf's orchestrator stuff. Of course, Nanoleaf seems to really be pursuing, in addition to the smart home market, like us, kind of going after the gamer audience, and of course, I think Mac users could use this too. So, um, yeah, pretty cool look. Uh, I was really impressed by how this looked in person. It's very nicely integrated into Windows in this case, and yeah, I think the demo was Windows, but I think it's great to see Nanoleaf kind of get more into this category where they're almost taking on Govee and a lot of the other lighting companies. I think it's nice to have competition in the space. It's good for us as customers, and I love what Govee does. I love what Nanoleaf does, and hopefully we'll see more from both of them. But that's a new product that they announced this week was these PC screen mirroring. Personally, a long time ago on my channel, I tried the Philips Hue Sync version of this with my Mac, and I've also tried the Nanoleaf 4D and some of those other TV experiences. I don't know. So far I've struggled to really see the value of those in terms of really being more immersive. I get that there's a lot of people, maybe you can share in the comments if you're into this, but like one of these sort of immersive lighting ideas, right? Where as you're using the screen, it's sort of showing some light colors around the screen to kind of reflect what it is. Bias lighting is, I think, sort of the official, like, um, not videographer, but like the sort of official term for viewing things in more of an um, immersive way that doesn't bother your eyes in a dark room. At the same time, though, I've been in plenty of demos at CES over the past couple of years where they have this set up, and it's just in some kind of fake living room with a TV thing, and so not my own home, but like the ideal conditions set up by the company. And I'm not really pulled into thinking, oh, that's so cool, I gotta have this. And I'll check it out for you guys, of course, sometimes. But if I'm not interested in it too much, it doesn't make for a good video. But yeah, maybe you guys can share in the chat if you're into it. But I just I get that it's a thing. I get that people like this kind of idea for computers or for TV. But personally, I've just struggled with why, you know. So yeah, monitor backlight for computers, and especially one that is color matched, right? So not just like I've had LED light strips on the back of my desk before, and that can be really cool. And there can be cool accent lighting in an office, right? Or in a entertainment room, and that's actually something too. If you're thinking about like smart home tech and what to build out in your home, uh, one thing to keep in mind too is it's really nice if you're working in an office or hanging out in a living room later at night trying to get ready for bed. Dimming the lights can be really nice for that kind of a effect. For example, let's see, am I able to pull this off without shutting? I was going to turn on my office dim lighting scene, but I think it will turn off my streaming hardware and then my camera would cut out. So I'm not going to actually do it, but I have like a dim scene in here that just has a few lights on. And it's nice to be in here when it's not so bright. If I'm like trying to do a few things and then head straight up to bed, it can be nice to have like a dim version of lighting as a scene in your particular rooms in your home. So and that plays right into accent lighting, right? So you can have any number of Nanoleaf's different lighting things. I've actually been playing, speaking of Nanoleaf, let me go ahead and pull this up. They have their new floor lamp, which here they have a cool video example of their streaming, game setup here with that. But if I go over to their products, it's the hold on the where is it? The Floor lamp. I don't see it. Never mind. I thought it was okay. Okay. Yeah, they've announced this floor lamp for pre-order, and it's pretty cool. So another cool Nanoleaf product that is coming soon that gives you like a nice kind of accent lighting look. Could coordinate with a screen. I think it coordinates with 4D, but they had this demoed at CES and they've announced it. So um, another one to keep an eye out for. Govee makes a very similar one. The thing that I've noticed the difference between this one and the Govee one is the Govee one's is a little taller and the base at the bottom is narrower. And so it, in my experience, having the Govee one at my home, struggles more on high pile carpet. So if you're trying to put this on carpet, I think the Nanoleaf one, based on what I've seen and played with, I think it's going to perform better on carpet than particularly thicker carpet compared to the Govee one, but splitting hairs on the details there. But I'm also glad that Nanoleaf's making one of these because if you're into Apple Home, it's easier to control a bunch of the Nanoleaf products, especially with their colored scenes inside of Apple Home. But yeah, anyways, we'll see how this all works out in actual practice trying it out. But I'm excited to see it's another product from Nanoleaf that's more recent. I don't think I've talked about it here on the stream, so I wanted to bring it up. Okay, we have some thoughts here on the lighting, the bias lighting. William says, as a gamer, both PC and Xbox, PlayStation, so you cover all the bases there. Backlighting is always great, but as a person that works the computer all day, yeah, accent lighting is great. And that's another thing too, is it can be nice if you work at a computer too. You can really make your computer area feel like less like you're at work if you happen to work in the same desk or a very close by setup as your gaming setup. Can be a nice lighting can be a nice way to kind of change up the work mode and the play mode and make them feel a little different. But I could guess in certain cases looking at a screen it'd be nice to have the light around. Where I work during the day, I tend to get a bunch of sunlight around where I'm sitting, and so that if I'm not working from home, if I'm actually like at my desk at the co-working space, I get a bunch of sunlight, and that kind of takes care of that for me right now. But it's not necessarily everybody's setup. This is a really good point, Steven. Would be interested in a video for privacy comparison top robot vacuums in the market. Noticed companies dominating robot vacuums right now, smart home gadgets. Yeah, I think, I've talked a little bit about this in the past, Steven, but not in a dedicated video around it. It's a good topic idea. Definitely something I should make a more specific video around. There's a number of like security findings, especially from this one researcher, and I can't remember his name right now, from Northeastern University. He's given a bunch of talks you can find on YouTube around robot vacuum security. I think sometimes, in order to get the clicks and attention, some people who report around this are a little bit sensationalist about some of the data that's being shared or kept on robot vacuums. But I think it's good to have security researchers in robot vacuums because it pressures the companies to do the right thing. And, when you reset the vacuum, it removes the maps from the vacuum. And because for a while it didn't necessarily do that. And I think now that's kind of the standard, as well as just details about what map and data stuff is collected from your home and sent back to the company. And are they able to look through the cameras? And there's a lot of times where you can opt into one of their improvement programs. And then that means that, if your vacuum hits an obstacle, well, then some of that video feed is sent back to the company for review. And some of that, of course you can opt out of, but it just, it can be an interesting side of robot vacuums to keep in mind. Um, and I think, another thing too is I think that, one of the reasons I have a theory about why robot vacuum companies have taken off so much in China is I think that just like we see this from drones as well, where there's a lot of really close collaboration needed on the hardware and the software side. And I think that that's possible there because the manufacturing is right there, right alongside of then the software development. And I think that's allowed a lot of innovation. Roborock's based in Hong Kong, I'm pretty sure. And then Ecovacs is in mainland China. I can't remember exactly the city they're in. Um, and then, but yeah, I think that that integration of the factory right alongside of the engineering and the software is makes for a nice environment to get those things built. But yeah, it's something to consider. I think at the same time, um, there's not aside from potential live video leaking, which would be a pretty bad security breach and something that has happened recently with, I think Ecovacs had an incident of this in 2024, but it was pretty clear that the person was not very, um, that they weren't really using good security practices. Like that person had an easily guessable password, and that's basically how this hacker got in, was through a password that was leaked, a known sort of password. If memory serves, that was from last year. But in general, um, I think a lot of the gaping security holes have been closed, and I think that the risk is not very high, generally speaking. But yeah, I mean, you got to put brands in your smart home that you trust. I trust a lot of these companies, but yeah, do some homework, look up what these companies have done. I'm not super sold on a lot of these. A lot of these companies use these sort of external verification services on their privacy practices, and I don't know how. I get the impression that those are more just a checkbox than actual privacy review. But um, still, I think that something to consider. But I think in general, a lot of us don't really have too much to worry about with a lot of these vacuums. I think the benefit far outweighs the security challenges, but it's something to be aware of. Yeah, and it is true. I mean, depending on the details, it would be hard to litigate some of these companies in the U.S. potentially. Um, on the flip side, though, they all have U.S. company, and corporate entities that I'm sure I'm not a lawyer, but you could probably take legal action against them in the U.S. But I also think that a lot of these companies have brands they've built for years with consumers, and they want to protect that. And the last thing any of these companies would want is for a news story or anything else to break about some kind of security violation and privacy violation that would look bad on the company. And of course, there are ways to handle those kind of PR issues. But I think that in general, I think a lot of these companies want to do the right thing because it's the best option for everybody involved. Uh, you've got the Philips Hue option, George, for the back to the backlighting on a TV, or backlighting on a computer. Yeah, it is. Nanoleaf is much more affordable than Philips Hue. Um, so I think that's a nice benefit there. Yeah, I've been I've had a few different Nanoleaf Matter over Wi-Fi products, and I've been pretty impressed with their reliability so far. Fingers crossed, and I'm sure we'll be trying more over time. Um, but I will say I'm not sure if it'll be the next video I publish or not, but an upcoming video of mine, I had to address some pretty big Matter over Wi-Fi problems in my home, and I go into some detail about it. So stay tuned for that on my channel because I think Matter over Wi-Fi is a kind of a newer thing, and some wireless internet companies are doing a better some like Wi-Fi router companies are doing a better job at supporting it than others. And so I made some change in my home around networking just because of Matter over Wi-Fi not working well with Ubiquiti Unify. And so yeah, I had to kind of leave them behind. because of what I do. And I have so many different Matter over Wi-Fi devices I want to try from lots of different brands. It doesn't mean you can't do it on Ubiquiti. It just was getting very challenging and lots of settings to play with all the time and troubleshoot. And as someone who has to set up multiple of those things a week, I didn't want to mess with all of that. If I was just doing it once or twice, getting some stuff going and then moving on, might not be as challenging. So we'll see. That's kind of a tangent there from Nanoleaf Matter over Wi-Fi to just all Matter over Wi-Fi. But yeah, Water Bottle 365, another regular viewer. Nice to see you here. Thanks for joining. Yeah, and I also like, speaking of Williams, also talking about the better price point from Nanoleaf. They've done that with a lot of their shapes now are Wi-Fi based, and they're able to drop the price on it. I think it's great to see Nanoleaf drop the prices on a lot of their tech because, they've had such good stuff, but the price point has been higher to really kind of means that it's less attractive for a lot of people, right? If you see other cheaper options, you might go with that, and understandably because it's less expensive. Um, and so I think hopefully it'll work out for Nanoleaf in the big picture of things. Speaking of lower prices, though, keep in mind that you got a lot of companies with potentially some great deals coming around the corner. With Amazon has their spring sale event next week, kind of like Prime Day, but for whatever reason, I don't think they're calling it Prime Day. Yeah, we got a spring sale coming up next week on Amazon. So stay tuned for all kinds of exciting content and deals around that. Should be a fun week to go shopping. So, yeah, I think John's saying he had Nanoleaf problems. I mean, they had some thread issues in the past. I mean, I still have like my status light outside of my office that tells people in my family that I'm recording or doing something like that where they shouldn't come in here. That's been on Matter over Thread for a while, and that's been working great. I think some of Nanoleaf's original Thread stuff, though, from before they started doing Matter, I did have some issues with those, and I don't have any of those in my home at this point. So, yeah. Let me scroll back up here and see what else I might have missed. All right. Well, we've been going now for about 40 minutes, and I usually like to leave you guys with a video of some kind. And because I watch a lot of YouTube, and of course, want to point you to another great video on YouTube you can keep watching when this stream is finished. So today, I think, though, given that George and I were just on Shane's live stream, I'm going to link to that here in the chat. And hope you guys have a great rest of your evening. Enjoy this other live stream if you haven't caught it already. Thanks so much for joining. Whoops. And yeah, I'll see you around in the next video. I got to go. Speaking of videos, I got to go record a video right now. So if you'll see this shirt, probably coming to you sometime next week on YouTube. Bye.